Ja, schönen guten Morgen, Jan hier von Trailtech Mountainbiking. Wir sind jetzt auf dem Weg nach Hahnenklee zum Bikepark am Bocksberg, um uns mit Conrad Davis zu treffen, der für den Streckenbau verantwortlich ist, weil wir hatten das Gefühl, in Hahnenklee hat sich einiges getan in letzter Zeit. Ja, Conrad wird uns ein bisschen was über die neuen Strecken erzählen und vielleicht auch über neue Projekte, die in den nächsten Jahren, nächsten Monaten teils schon umgesetzt werden. Freut euch drauf. So, ich sitze jetzt in der Bergbahn, hier hoch auf den Bocksberg und die Fahrt soll ungefähr 8 Minuten dauern. So, wir sind jetzt hier in Hahnenklee oben. Bei mir der Conrad Davis, der für die Streckenpflege und Streckenbau zuständig ist. Conrad, kannst du einfach mal kurz erzählen, woher du kommst, was sich in Hahnenklee geändert hat und was du vielleicht vorhast hier?
Sure.
Or maybe in English.
In English, yeah.
In English, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I'm from South Africa. I worked as a bike shop workshop manager for many years in South Africa, and when we had a little girl 4 years ago, my wife and I decided that we'd move back to her country of origin. My wife was born in Holzminden. We spent a lot of time thinking about where we could move, and we looked at New Zealand, and we looked at Germany because obviously she comes from here. So I sent out lots of CVs, and I was lucky enough to get a job working in a bike park. So I sent CVs to a few bike parks, but this was kind of the one that I was almost most excited to work for. And they got back to me pretty quickly, and it all happened really quickly. We decided to move in November of 2014, and I had a job here in January of 2015 already. So it was like a 2-month whirlwind, and we moved here in May last year, and so we've been here for 11 months now, and it's beginning to feel like home. Yeah.
What is your experience with trail building and building mountain bike tracks?
It's pretty weird. I worked, as most people know, we had a pretty cool run of World Cups and a World Champs in South Africa in Pietermaritzburg, and when we lived in KwaZulu-Natal, which is where Pietermaritzburg is in South Africa, I worked on the downhill track for the World Cup and the World Champs, and I got interested in it, and then I decided to build a downhill track in my back garden. So I started building this downhill track in my back garden, and my friends used to come and ride and build in my back garden, and it just became this thing that I did. I built trails in our property in Waterfall in KZN, and I thought, hey, that'll be a cool job to do, so, so that's why I do it.
Then let's talk about the trails here at Bocksberg at Hahnenklee. I've mentioned there's a new pump track out there.
Yeah, the whole idea with Hahnenklee for me is to try and build a bike park that's for everyone. So initially, when I came here, the bike tracks were all very, very profy type tracks, and they all led directly down the hill and had lots of natural sections and things like that. And the only track that was sort of rideable for everyone was our flow trail. I noticed that pretty much everybody rides the flow trail, and a lot of people don't even touch the other tracks. So the idea here is to try and build a more family-friendly track where you can come with your wife or girlfriend who maybe isn't as serious about mountain biking as you are, and she can ride. She's got some more options other than just the flow trail. And then if the kids come along, they can ride the pump track outside here. It's really aimed at kids. It's a pretty easy, small pump track. But the plan is in the future to build a big adult-sized pump track as well for the big kids. So it's all coming. So we've got an upgrade to our flow trail. We've got a new A-line planned for this year, where it's more a machine-built, easier trail to ride. But if you're a more profy rider, you can just jump the jumps instead of riding over them, and you can obviously hit the berms faster. So the plan is to make a bike park not for everybody, but for more people, to engage more people in the sport.
Yeah, nice. The first time we met, you were talking about that you want to build a bike park and not a gravity park, and I thought, oh yeah, this might get interesting in the future, I think.
Where I come from, there are very few gravity parks. Initially, there were 2 gravity parks in South Africa, and they had small downhill tracks or multiple small downhill tracks, and slowly the local trail builders started building cross-country or marathon type trails, and those trails started to get used more. So the realization was that you actually need to build trails for everyone, and bike parks evolved into more trail centres like you get in the UK, where there's basically a central point where you meet and pay for your entry fee or whatever, and then you can ride 20 or 30 or 70 kilometers of trail. And that's the plan here in Hahnenklee, is to build a trail centre, not just a bike park or gravity park. So it's a bike park and trail centre. We'll have an up and down trail in a couple of years' time. We've got really great up trails at the moment as it is, with Liebesbankwerk for people to ride up and then ride down some of the trails. So the idea is to build more of a trail centre. So as you can see, this is our land that we can use. Not all of it is ours to use, but you can see some of the new trails that will come in this year. This is the addition to what the existing freeride trail. It'll have more corners, more jumps. It'll have a lot more flow to it, and it won't have very much natural stuff. It'll be all machine built. Up here is some new additions to Flow Trail, and new additions to the North Shore Trail. But then the big project for the coming years is to build this enduro track here. The idea is that it has an entry point at the bottom that you can ride up, and then an entry point at the top that you can use the lifts to access. So it's basically an up and down trail, or just a down trail depending on what kind of bike you're riding. But it'll be a more pedaling, family-friendly type of trail, and that's where we're going from there. And then hopefully in the coming years we'll be able to extend our range beyond our property and incorporate extra pieces of forest outside, and then eventually hopefully some other bike parks where we link our bike park to other bike parks and create a really big network of trails and a great trail centre vibe. Last year it was pushed that during the holiday periods or during the summer periods only the chairlift could be used by bikers, but there are obviously some bikers that don't want to use the chairlift. Some days it's cold, some people are scared of heights, those sort of things. So for this year we're allowing people to ride both the cabin and the chairlift, and then obviously you've got the road access as well, so people can just ride up the hill if they want to. So there's many different options. If you come to visit the bike park, you can do anything from a day ticket on either the chairlift or the cabin, or you can just buy what we call a rider's ticket, and the rider's ticket allows you to access all the trails in the bike park, but you can't use the lifts.
Yeah, sounds good.
So from being from South Africa and being an avid mountain biker, I went with a South African brand. So this was basically the first downhill bike that I would have ridden. This is actually my wife's one. It's a Moed Izimu, and Izimu is the Zulu word for cannibal, which is pretty cool. So it's the man-eater. So my wife rides a Moed Izimu now, which is a single pivot, pretty straightforward but super fun bike. And then her trail bike is a Moed Shova. Shova is the Zulu word for pedal. So very simple names, but they sound cool. And these are what we started on. So 7 years ago, when I started taking mountain biking really seriously, we got involved with Moed, and we've ridden Moeds for 7 years. They evolved a little bit. I have a cross-country Moed, and this is my bike. It's a large, still a single pivot bike, but so very much like the Shova, but it's the Zula, and Zula is the Zulu word for kind of play around or mess around. So, and it's exactly that. It's a mess around bike. So it's a cross-country geometry bike. It has 100 millimeters of travel on the back, but it runs 140 millimeter fork up front. So it's definitely a thrash bike. It's missing a drop a seat post, which will come soon.
Yeah, I mentioned it.
But it's a really cool bike. And then as a race bike, I was lucky enough to be involved enough with Moed that they pretty much custom built a bike for me. So I have a really weird body geometry with a long leg and a short upper body. So I have a Moed Mkulu 650B, or 27.5 wheel bike. It runs the longest rear shock on the market at a 10.5 inch rear shock, like the White Heat 2Airs and the new Scott Gambler. It's still single pivot, but it's linkage activated, so it's a little bit more advanced. And yeah, this bike was pretty much made for me. So much so that I don't know if the camera will see it, but down here on the, you won't see it, but in there it has my name. So it says C-Rad in there, which is short for Conrad. So it literally was made for me. So I raced
on the past.
quite seriously in South Africa as a sub-vet, so 30 to 40-year-old, and finished second at the national series, won the local series, got my provincial colours in 2011, which was the same year my daughter was born. Raced on a really nice team, Team Sputnik Corporation. My teammates became very famous at World Champs for pulling a massive look-back whip over the finish line jump. So our jerseys are sort of well known by the Brits because he was featured in the UK and a couple other cool magazines. And so I decided when I came here that I would race World Champs for the last time. I'm now 41 years old this year, and I figure this is my last year of being serious at this gravity racing thing, and then I'm going to start riding enduro a little bit more and probably racing more enduro, which is probably why I have the passion for building an enduro type venue here on the hill.
Yeah, it sounds very good, and I'm looking forward to these new trails and to the future of Bikepark Hahnenklee. Yeah, we've learned something about you and your history and your mountain bike history especially.
Stay tuned, watch the space.
Yeah, watch the space. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
And see you.
Cheers.
Bye, cheers.
Bye.